Latest Spanish zombie movie of 2024, Zombie Styx. This man named John just woke up on the riverbank. He discovered a large hole in his palm. But strangely, John didn't feel any pain. The sunlight shining through the hole in his hand told his brother, all of this is not an illusion. When John hurried back home and looked in the mirror, he discovered a round hole in his chest. John quickly tore off his shirt to check. Sure enough, there was a black bullet hole right in his chest. Realizing something was wrong, John rushed to the hospital. He showed the doctor the wound on his hand. Hearing the description, the doctor was also very confused. This was the first time he encountered such a strange thing. But the next examination made the doctor feel a tingling sensation in his scalp, because the device showed that John had no heartbeat. In other words, he is dead. John suspected there was definitely a problem with the device. He's obviously sitting here and talking to the doctor. The doctor wanted to conduct a more thorough examination of John, because whether John dies or not, the wounds that appeared on his body were all worthy of study. The doctor's actions also made John feel offended, because John doesn't want to be a guinea pig for others. So he hastily tore off the equipment and ran out of the hospital. After returning home, John took off all his clothes, and began examining the bullet holes in his body in the mirror. He used tweezers to remove a bullet from the hole. During that process, he did not feel any pain. After bandaging the wound, John began to remember what happened last night. At that time, he was walking his dog by the riverbank. When coming to a big bridge, John discovered two figures fighting in the dark. As a police officer, he of course couldn't sit still and not care. Stand still. John pulled out a gun, causing the offender to run away. When he arrived at the scene, discovered the man on the ground was no longer breathing. Look at the back of the fleeing murderer. He hurriedly chased after him. The murderer was cornered by John. He had no choice but to face and attack John. John avoided the enemy's bullet, glide and hide behind the column. But who would have thought that when he carefully prepared to circle back, the murderer predicted his intentions in advance, and then sent John on his way. The murderer threw John off the big bridge. That was the first scene that happened. John remembered the cause of the incident. Once again drove to that big bridge. He called his colleagues at the police station. This place was also blocked by the police. When John asked his colleagues about the progress of the matter, his colleagues spoke to him again. No corpses were discovered here. There were also no signs of any murder. This made John feel unbelievable. He described to his colleagues in detail what happened yesterday, because the killer wore a mask. I don't know what his face looks like, but the man he killed was probably about 40 years old. John's gun was also stolen by the perpetrator. Colleague Adam doubted John's memory, because John is famous for being a drunkard. He thinks these things are all John's hallucinations. Seeing that my colleagues don't believe me, John quietly walked to the side. He takes advantage when his colleagues aren't paying attention. Take the bullet casing out of your body, and put it in the slot of the large bridge railing, then shouted for colleagues to come. John was also reluctant, because my colleagues don't believe me, to continue the investigation. He can only create evidence. Whatever happens to you, it's really somewhat unbelievable. Due to investigation, John has a few days off. After returning to family, he just felt unbearably hungry. Under the surprised eyes of his wife and daughter, John is like a beggar who craves food. Eat and drink like you've never eaten before. After John finished the last bit of food in the pot, he just felt like something was wrong with his stomach. He ended up vomiting. John sat on the sofa in the evening, thinking about the strange things that just happened. At this time, the little daughter entered the living room, wanting to hug my father. But the strange thing is, when the daughter hugged John for a moment, the girl said her father was cold to the bone. The girl wants to let go. But John hugged his daughter and refused to let go. The feeling of hunger in his stomach made him lose his reason. John, his eyes full of black veins, hugged even tighter. Luckily, the daughter was struggling in her arms, awakened his reason. Just for a moment, John didn't remember what he needed to do. After sending my daughter away, John hurriedly called the doctor. He told the doctor that when he hugged his daughter just now, the brain and body are not under their control. If my daughter hadn't woken me up in time, he didn't know what he would do. Dr. Simon comforted John's feeling, and told him, currently his body does not show any signs of life, but still living normally. This situation was also the first time Simon encountered it. That's why at the hospital I wanted to research it thoroughly. The doctor warned John, don't tell others about your condition anymore. If not, you will really be forced into the laboratory to become a guinea pig. Then Simon took John to his underground laboratory. This place is fully equipped. Just in time he wanted to examine John more closely. John's phone suddenly rang. A woman's cry for help rang out from the phone. The woman was John's informant. As he drove to the informant's area, found that the woman was no longer conscious. Looks like she took too much medicine. Just as John was giving the woman water to drink, a young man suddenly appeared behind him. Next, that person pulled out a dagger and stabbed straight into John's back. Also at this moment, strange thing happened. John, after smelling the blood, completely lost his reason. John turns into a zombie, directly pushed Tommy into the wall. Next, he took a big bite of meat from Tommy's arm. Watching John greedily eat his meat, Tommy was so scared that he ran away for his life. A moment later, John regained his reason and looked around him, covered in blood. He had forgotten what had just happened. Tommy now flees on the other side. He was treating his wound in a restroom. Who would have thought that as soon as he walked out the door, he was caught by the boss. Due to Tommy's stupidity, caused the tycoon's goods to be inspected. The angry boss took action on Tommy right then and there. Then there was even him. Take on the trash piles on the side of the road mercilessly. Actually, Tommy's situation is also pitiful. Their gang always does a legal thing. Before this transaction took place, Tommy also gave money to John. After John assured him that there had been no recent inspection activity, Tommy dared to conduct this transaction. But who would have thought John was on leave? He did not know about this unexpected raid by the police department. This made the man think that John had cheated on Tommy. That's why he went to John to get revenge. Return to John. At this time he once again arrived at the beach where he woke up. He wondered if he could find some clues here. At this moment, he felt a slight itch in his palm. John removed the bandage wrapped around his palm, but was surprised to find out holes from previous bullet. I don't know how it healed. John even thought his body had recovered to normal. There was a smile on his face that he hadn't seen in a long time. But what you don't know is the person wearing the mask. At this time, he came before a sleeping old man. After determining that the elderly person was fast asleep, the masked person placed a camera in the chandelier. After completing these tasks, he immediately went back inside the car. And when the masked person takes off the mask, surprised people again. Turns out he is Dr. Simon. At this moment, John looked at his image in the mirror and discovered something was wrong. In the wound on his chest, a maggot crawled out. This discovery made John unable to believe his eyes. Actually, he is dead. But John himself did not know. As time passes, his body began to decompose. Even girls also smelled a foul odor coming from John's body. What's the matter, honey? Why stay away from Dad? Dad is very smelly. John realized something was wrong. Immediately go to Dr. Simon for examination. But just as Simon approached to take a sample from his wound, John just felt very hungry. Luckily, he regained his reason in time. After collecting blood and wound samples, Simon gave John a bottle of preservative, and told him to try to get to a place with low temperatures. Thus, the decomposition rate can be effectively controlled. Am I really that smelly? Many people say I stink. That's right. You can spray some perfume or drink some strong alcohol to hide the bad smell, Simon said to John. His heart is no longer beating though, but his brain still has functioning cells. If the remaining cells are exhausted, then the brain will think that John is dead. Then, he will lose all sensory and motor abilities, and eventually consciousness will completely disappear. When the cells are completely consumed, your consciousness will also gradually disappear. So, I will soon die. That's right. Simon also doesn't know how long John has left to live. He suggested that John should participate in the study. Now John's special will bring great benefits to humanity. But John doesn't want to be a guinea pig. He is now very alert. And so John once again refused Simon's offer. After he left, Simon went to a private place in the laboratory. Actually, he doesn't know either. Why did John become like that? Initially the bullet was actually fired to kill him, but strangely turned John into a zombie. Simon looked at the body soaking in the bathtub. The body was that of the man he murdered that night. Simon plans to first use the man as a test subject. On the other hand, John, he plans to go to the nursing home to visit his father. Before entering, he also deliberately sprayed a lot of perfume on himself. But as soon as he reached the hallway, immediately I saw my wife and a man talking very intimately, even though he divorced his wife a long time ago. But because of their children, the two still lived together in the same family. Encountered his wife with someone new, making John, who was already feeling sad, even more miserable. So he went to the informant, looking for a little solace. Come for dinner. John saw the dining table full of food but had no appetite. But the daughter heard her father's stomach growling. John originally planned to rest after the meal. Suddenly I felt a little itchy in my palms. After removing the bandage, I discovered it. The wound has already healed. Necrosis begins again. Leave the smell of necrosis on your body so your family can't smell it. John decided to rest in the garage. At this time, he saw the refrigerator next to him. Remember what Simon told me. Cold environments can slow down his necrosis. So, John immediately climbed into the refrigerator. Wait until the wife and daughter leave the house the next day. John just sneaked out of the refrigerator stealthily. Seeing his wife's back fading away, John's stomach started growling again. He was about to go into the house to find something to eat. but there was a man quietly following him. The overreaction caused John to turn into a zombie. The bloodthirsty instinct also flared up again. Wait until John regains consciousness. The unfortunate man only had a few pieces of meat left. John did not dare to believe everything that was happening before his eyes. He wants to call the police, but he remembered that he was also a police officer. After calming down, John intends to destroy evidence to erase traces. John brought the man's crushed corpse, put it in a trash bag, then clean up the bloodstains in the garage. Then change into clean clothes. John is planning to drive to dump Big Beard's body in the suburbs. Unexpectedly, colleague Adam suddenly appeared at the door. Adam wanted John with him. Track down the smuggler's wife, hoping to find some new clues through her. John was extremely stressed at this time, but he tried to calm himself down. The two followed the smuggler's wife for half a day. Finally they saw her meeting another man. Adam followed behind to secretly take pictures of evidence. John continued to wait in the car. Right at this moment, John heard a noise from the trunk of the car. Hello? Is anyone there? After John opened the trunk, discovered again, the man who seemed dead came back to life. Apparently he had also been infected as a zombie. John grabbed the fire extinguisher and hit this guy a few times, once again knocking him unconscious. At this time Adam also returned. On the road, Adam sent a message to someone. Unexpectedly, the beeping sound came from John's pocket. It turned out that yesterday John wanted to check his wife's phone. Who would have thought that his son would appear right behind him? In panic, he put the phone in his pocket. And recently John called his wife's new lover. Just found out that the person who cheated on him was actually his colleague Adam. Just when Adam wanted to ask, the car trunk once again made a noise. You hear that? Is there something in the back? John suddenly braked hard, using the excuse that there might be parts falling out of the trunk. Tell Adam to get out of the car to check. However, when Adam just walked to the back of the car, John stepped on the accelerator, causing Adam to be left in place. Till night, John's wife came to Adam's house. Tell him about losing his phone. Listen to these words. Adam just reacted. It turns out that John found out about their affair. What's up? He already knows. Scene changes to John. He also learned from Jace's mouth. It was the masked man who told him to kidnap himself. John is looking for the masked man, so he went to where Jace and the masked man arranged to meet, wanting to use his plan to pull out the masked man. At this time, the man wearing the Simon mask also received an email from Jace. Tell him to go to the transaction point to make the transaction. But Simon vaguely felt that something was wrong, so he turned on the camera to monitor John. It was easy to spot John's scheme. This time, at John's house, he also accidentally discovered a camera in his house. John now understood. His every move is watched by the masked man. Considering the masked man doesn't appear anymore, John plans to give the bearded man to Simon for research. But what he didn't know was, the person behind everything is Simon. Don't you want a test subject? Because John is now a zombie, so that my body doesn't decompose. He has to sleep in the refrigerator every day. At this time, John had just crawled out of the refrigerator and surprisingly discovered the wound that was still decomposing yesterday has now completely healed. John thought, this may have something to do with the fact that he ate human flesh. So he immediately went to Dr. Simon. Simon is studying the bearded man. Simon told him, inside the body of a bearded man, there is a mysterious virus that has never been seen before. Perhaps his transformation has something to do with this. Have you been bitten by a bat or something? Or not? Instead, I bit this man. Did you bite him? So the bite mark on his body was caused by you, right? You went crazy and infected him, right? Are you scared? Simon just found out. The transformation of the big bearded man was caused by John. He stepped back looking scared. John noticed Simon's worry. He took off all his clothes and explained what had happened over the past 2 days. Initial rotting wound after biting Jace, completely healed again. Simon over the past 2 days also discovered in his research about Jace that ordinary food, it is completely impossible to power him. On the contrary, it causes vomiting and madness. But through John's expression, human flesh and blood are their true food. It is even possible to make limbs and cells regenerate. This is probably a completely new evolution. After speaking, he immediately wanted to take John's blood again. I need a new blood sample. Don't worry, I can control myself now. Simon was still a little scared. The next second John could lose his mind, but John kept insisting. He is now clear-headed, can control yourself. On the other hand, a woman is washing her car herself at a gas station. Suddenly a pair of hands attacked her from behind. Next came the sounds of chewing and biting. When the car drove out of the gas station, the woman in the car disappeared. Very fast. John and several people received a warning call and quickly arrived at the scene. The inside of the car was full of blood, but the strange thing is that the victim disappeared without a trace. And what is more remarkable is, the second similar case occurred this week. John always felt that this method was a bit familiar. This scene reminded him of when he faced the big bearded man. At this time, the the two corpses had disappeared, was thrown into a coffin. Then the machine pushed it into the crematorium. And who is behind all of this? It was a black shadow wearing a cow horn hat. The smuggling case here has made new progress. Under Adam's threats and manipulation, the smuggler's wife finally revealed some clues. He told the two people, "Tonight a ship will dock at the port to unload cargo." So John and Adam went to the harbor first to wait. But I waited half a day and still saw no sign of anyone. It turns out the smuggler is sly. Arranged for migrants to travel by water. Wear a life jacket prepared in advance to escape. Come the next day, John's body changed again. The wound on his hand once again showed signs of necrosis. Looks like Jace's meat energy was almost completely consumed. He applied ice to the wound hoping to slow down the rate of necrosis. The feeling of hunger made him so uncomfortable that he could not bear it. At this moment, he saw a mouse jumping out from the side. Seeing the mouse, John thought of something. He carefully moved towards the mouse. Finally he jumped up and grabbed it. John started biting at the mouse immediately. But immediately afterward, he vomited. It seemed, not all flesh and blood can provide energy for John. It's not just you who's hungry. At this time, Jace was also too hungry. So I was very weak. I know what can satisfy your hunger. This is a good opportunity to witness cell regeneration. Simon, to keep Jace alive. He went to the home of a patient who lived alone. The KIJUSTG was not on guard and was stunned by Simon. And what he wanted was for Jace to have new food. But just as Simon was carrying the old woman away, on the way, he encountered John looking for him. So that John wouldn't discover the old woman in the car, Simon covered it up, and then carefully locked the car door. They both went to the laboratory, check on Jace's situation. But at this time, Jace was about to starve. Seeing Simon, he could only silently wait for the opportunity. I hope John leaves to feed Jace. At this time John received a call from Adam. He said he found new clues about the smuggler. Adam asked John to quickly come to his aid. Without waiting any longer, Adam climbed over the fence to get inside. He held the gun and carefully observed his surroundings. In a room, found a woman covered in blood, and the victim is no longer intact. There were also traces of being bitten and torn on his body. Adam is looking to take a closer look, but the next second, when John came to this place, found Adam lying on the ground no longer moving. He was trying to wake Adam up. The light bulb above his head suddenly turned on. John turned his head and looked back. It turned out to be my old acquaintance, Tommy. The man was the scoundrel who was bitten by John first. Tommy was stabbed repeatedly by the boss but did not die. Look at the blood at the corner of his mouth. Looks like he also turned into a zombie. Tommy understand. John is like him. I strangely did not die, and have to live by devouring flesh and blood. It's all thanks to John. He wants to continue to cooperate with John in his upcoming business, because he knows John is certainly extremely hungry right now. To show sincerity, Tommy also intentionally kept Adam, just for when John comes to enjoy it together. Face your rival and the temptation of food. John with a fierce face, really want to eat Adam, but in the end he still controlled himself. Turn around and grab Tommy. The two immediately struggled with each other. John picked up the fallen pistol. A shot hit Tommy's head, but the other person was wearing a level 3 helmet. Seems impossible to win. Tommy had no choice but to run away. After John chased Tommy away, he suppressed his hunger and took Adam to the hospital. Under interrogation from superiors, John only said that when he arrived, Adam had fainted, because the light is too dark. He also couldn't see the perpetrator's face clearly. John didn't dare reveal too many details. He didn't want to be seen as a man-eating monster by others. But paper cannot hide fire forever. Through forensic examination, there were clear bite marks on the woman's body, and there was also a gunshot wound on his head. To disturb the judgment of the policeman, John thinks it may be caused by domestic hunting dogs. But suddenly, the forensic expert opened his mouth. There were traces of human teeth on the body. Are you sure? This feeling is really bad. Could it be that among the smugglers there is also a cannibal? After listening to the forensic expert's judgment, everyone present was stunned. Could it be? Is there a monster in the smuggling group that likes to eat people? Luckily, the incident was too unbelievable. The boss also doesn't want to ask any more questions. She announced to the outside that the port would be completely blockaded, and then release evidence of the smuggling group's crimes to the public. Hopefully people who know the clues can cooperate in the investigation. On the other hand, Simon. At this time, his research had a new breakthrough. He successfully separated the virus from the blood. Just as he was about to inject the new test subject, the old woman suddenly discovered that the old woman was dead. This made Simon angry because it was beyond his expectations. The hard-earned test subject was lost again. Heaven does not eliminate human life. Simon's wife told him that she met a homeless person on the street, find him pitiful, invited him home for a meal. Simon looked at the other person and had bad intentions. After learning that this person had no relatives in the city, I feel even more that this is a gift from heaven. After finding an excuse to take his wife away, Simon used anesthetic to make the man unconscious, then carried him into the underground laboratory. although Simon was very careful. But this scene was still seen by his wife upstairs. John's body was now close to a critical point, when he wants to approach his wife to get clothes. "Are you hungry?" Luckily, his wife's voice woke John up, but that moment of distraction also made him panic. John realized he was about to lose control of himself. "I don't dare stay at home anymore." So John went to the docks and joined Adam in looking for evidence. Adam always doubted John's testimony. He feels John is definitely hiding something. John was very angry because Adam had betrayed his wife. Plus, he now feels unbearably hungry. But Adam still kept talking next to him. John just felt a surge of anger. Isn't stealing someone else's wife enough? Do you still want to step on others to get a promotion and raise your salary? These two things are completely unrelated. Really, that's right. The two disagreed about words and began to fight. John was about to lose control of himself. "Now I'm completely relaxed." When Adam got up and started looking for John again, found him lying face down on the ground. "Hey man, John is back to normal." And Adam for turning his back. At that time, I could not see John's appearance clearly. John is secretly happy, for Adam did not discover his change. Tommy's wife suddenly found him again. Even before that, John asked Mary to help find Tommy. Mary told him that one of Tommy's subordinates had approached him, but what Mary didn't know was, their meeting was just in time for their subordinates to see, and by evening, Tommy was surprised to find Mary. The couple has not seen each other for a long time. There was no avoiding a moment of affection, but after Mary drew the curtains, Tommy suddenly turned into a zombie. He bit Mary's neck immediately. John on the other side of course doesn't know any of this. He had just been informed by his wife. "My son stole things again." And even got caught red-handed by others. He was so angry that he couldn't help but start criticizing his son. But unexpectedly, his son suddenly became angry because he was embarrassed, saying that the cause was because the alcoholic father did not fulfill his responsibilities. It's not like Adam cares about him more. All these things caused John, who was on the brink, to completely explode. "I have begun to be unable to control my behavior. What are you doing?" Scene change. This guardian has been dead for 10 days, but no one discovered it, until the boss came to ask because there was a problem with the access control system. Just discovered that the man was no longer breathing. Forensic doctors examined the guard, and discovered the guard's face seemed to come to life. The posture remains the same as sitting while working. However, the body gives off a formaldehyde smell. Because the hall has air conditioning, so no one can smell it. Right now, boss, notice the blue sneakers on the guard's feet. She remembered the murder at the harbor earlier, as described by John River. The victim is the person wearing these shoes, so the boss immediately went to John's house, but no trace of him was found. After a while of searching, finally found John on a fishing boat. The boss wants him back to investigate this. John currently does not want to participate in these things. "Since the last time I lost control, he has moved out of the house. He wants to live and destroy himself on this ship. Therefore, he did not care about investigating the perpetrator. But when I saw the surveillance video my boss pulled out, found out who put the guard's body there. It's the person wearing the mask." John became the zombie he is today because of this masked person. Now there's a chance to catch him. John of course could not stand aside. However, before going to the police station, John let his face look a little more normal. He bought a bunch of foundation and applied it to his face. After arriving at the police station, he used the excuse to check the guard's body. Distracted the forensic doctor, then quickly opened a drawer containing the body. Inside there was an unclaimed corpse. John really couldn't restrain himself. Start enjoying. This was also something he had thought about for a long time, but due to too much stress, he still left a few drops of fresh blood on the ground at the scene. The forensic cleaner realized something was wrong. Forensics examined the corpse in the body cabinet, discovered a dead body, was no longer as intact as before. Elsewhere, John is unaware that he has been exposed. He thinks that after eating human flesh, my rotten wounds will heal. But when he opened the bandage on his hand, the rotting wound in his palm still shows no signs of healing. At this time, the wife came to John. His wife placed a restraining order in front of him, because last time John couldn't control his emotions. His wife forbade John from visiting his children in the future. And give you a little notice. He has to receive psychological treatment. Hope you will go. Can you give me some time? So have you ever thought about your child's feelings? John, who was mentally unstable, became even more agitated because of this, lost control and fell to the ground. The sunglasses fell off. Also makes the wife see his lifeless eyes. To prevent me from doing any more extreme actions, John quickly ran out of the restaurant. Come to the beach. Wait for the wife to chase and find out. John was standing on the beach not far away, vomiting. It seems like eating corpses. His cells cannot be made to regenerate. The wife realized that John's health problems seemed serious, so she went to Dr. Simon. Wanted to ask what disease John finally got. Simon of course won't tell her the truth, just saying that maybe he forced the divorce, leading to John being psychologically damaged. Then just a few words sent her away. Scene transition to the forensic room. Doctors at this time. The security guard's autopsy is underway. There was no more flesh and blood left in the corpse's body. The reason it looks plump, it's because the inside of the corpse was filled with a type. The mixture is like fat. But treating a corpse like this, the person who harms others wants something, because they never knew, or maybe because of art. At this time, a forensic doctor saw that there was something unusual about John. But he didn't say it right away. The story of the John River crushing corpses. The number on the corpse's clothes is 5. This means there are 4 more victims than before. They didn't find out. People still have no clue. The masked man began to act again. He hacked into the art museum's network. Causes the screen to play. Image of the guard being monitored before his death. Step out of the darkness, toward the light. I've seen people go unnoticed. Simon goes to the cemetery to visit his deceased mother. Not long now, Mom. The whole world will recognize your work. Turned out, his aim is to transform those who are inherently uncared for. Become a work of art that everyone loves. Place it in front of them. It must be said that he is somewhat bizarre. After Simon returned home, discovered that the key in his laboratory had been touched. He went to the lab and asked the boy if anyone was coming. The boy hesitated and said nothing. It turns out his wife, Lisa, snuck in while Simon was away, to learn her husband's secret. But he was frightened by the boy's screams and ran away. Simon felt the man's pulse. Why do you still have a heartbeat? You should have changed already. Only then did Simon react. You've always overlooked one condition. Only the dead are the premise for transformation. And so in the next second, the boy was satisfied by Simon. Daughter because she hasn't seen her father for a few days. Called and no one answered the phone. Therefore, the daughter let the dog lead the way ahead. She immediately cycled to the dock. Dad, I wanted to hug my dad. But John immediately locked himself in the ship compartment. He was now unable to control his hunger. Screamed at her daughter who was outside the door to leave quickly. The terrifying roar made the girl feel scared. Finally left the harbor. But the new girl didn't go far. Suddenly a small truck blocked the road. Don't let the little dog in. Hello, we're about to go for a walk. Scene change. The wife is frightened to find out. My husband turned out to be a zombie. At this moment, John was about to lose his mind. To not hurt others, he could only chain himself with iron chains. Restrain the bloodlust in your heart. John tore off his shirt, revealing rotting wound. Start talking to your wife. The truth about my own strange transformation. But the wife did not completely believe him. She doesn't believe that the dead can become zombies. Seeing that the wife still did not believe it, John extended his right hand towards her. After touching and not seeing John had a pulse, his new wife begins to believe him. But now Mary doesn't want to clarify these things. She asked about the whereabouts of her 2 children. Only then did John know. The daughter went missing after leaving here. While 2 people were talking, there was noise coming from the deck. When John went up, he discovered that it was Tommy sitting there. John saw that and wanted to pick up the gun in the corner, but the iron chain at the back had reached its limit. Tommy accidentally picked up the gun next to him and threw it aside. He looked at John now and felt very funny. Obviously a zombie. Trying to suppress my instincts again. Tommy scoffed and took out his phone. Inside is a photo of him and John's daughter together. Seeing his daughter kidnapped by the enemy, John was extremely angry. But Tommy doesn't care about those things. He said to John that the refugees he smuggled would arrive at the port tonight. If the safety of the goods cannot be guaranteed, then they'll have his daughter for dinner tonight. Weaknesses are held by the opponent. John wouldn't have it any other way either. After he took off his chains, immediately told his wife that he would definitely find his daughter again. Transfer to the police station. Adam discovered 2 bodies at a crematorium. The bite marks on the body were identical to those previously discovered. Sign up for incineration. The most suspected murderer at the moment is he is Tommy's subordinate. The person who previously followed Tommy's wife was also him. At this time, Tommy did not know that he had been exposed. He's having fun in a bar and has chosen a new prey. After leaving the dock, John again found an informant. He wants this person to find out information about Tommy and his daughter. The informant agreed and said he would contact me when there was news. But when John had just walked a little way, the informant immediately went to a secret room. Inside was John's daughter. It turns out that the informant was soon bribed by Tommy. John left not long after. On the way, he realized someone was following him, and the person who followed him was John pretended not to know and stopped the car on the side of the road, then walk again under a bridge. when Just chased him. Just discovered that John recently disappeared without leaving a trace. Just when Just was about to call to report, John suddenly appeared behind Just. He intended to force questions about his daughter's whereabouts, but the feeling of hunger suddenly came. He couldn't help but bite Just's neck. Edible fresh meat and blood also calmed John down. Just took advantage of the opportunity to escape John's bond. Looking at the other person's figure fading away, John has regained his reason. Quickly use water to wash off the bloodstains on his mouth. He just picked up the phone that Just dropped. Haven't checked yet. The boss and Adam, who watched Just from behind, arrive. The boss discovers that the Just they followed has transformed into John. Also very surprised, seeing the other person ask about the bloodstains at the corner of his mouth. John vaguely said that he was also watching. There just happened to be a fight. Accidentally let the opponent escape. To save my daughter. John did not turn Just's phone over to the police. Scene change. Just somewhere else. He injured his neck and found Tommy. Tommy saw the wound and understood everything. Just is not afraid. On the contrary, he happily accepted his transformation. He has long been secretly jealous of Tommy's abilities, but Tommy doesn't think so. He cannot accept the lower person becoming like him. So I used another way to defeat this Just guy. Scene change. John now intends to go to the body storage room, look for some clues, but the forensic scientist stopped him. Previously, John bit and tore dead bodies. Forensic doctors already know. But he never denounced John. On the contrary, he helped him deal with the consequences. Because the forensic doctor has been very interested in zombies since childhood, he wants to use this to threaten John. To make him study deeper. But how could John be controlled by him? He wants to teach his opponent a lesson. Suddenly the phone rang. It was Tommy calling. The enemy uses his daughter to threaten John to chase the police out of the harbor. For my daughter's safety, John stunned fellow harbor guard Adam. Then he also used Adam's phone. Send fake messages to superiors. Such police were transferred from the harbor. When Adam woke up again witnessed Tommy biting people. He immediately pulled out his phone and shot it at the opponent, but the bullet hit Tommy's helmet just in time. Adam saw that the situation was not good, immediately ran away for his life, then quickly hid on top of the container. At this time John had just found Tommy. Adam thus overheard their conversation. Hey Tommy, where is my daughter? I did everything as you said. Tommy never kept his promise. This made John very angry. He's about to go crazy. Who would have thought that at this moment, a group of policemen would arrive. After escaping from police pursuit, John immediately went to Dr. Simon. He asked Simon if there was any way without eating human flesh to restore the body. Simon said to John he needed a mutated subject to experiment on, because John always refuses to harm normal people. Who know? Simon now directly exposed his neck to John. Because of research, he wanted John to bite him again. If you don't know, he is the mastermind of this. One could truly think that he was a dedicated doctor. John couldn't help but opened his mouth. But in the next second, he still pushed Simon away and ran out of the room. All body functions are declining. John felt he didn't have much longer to live. He went to the hospital to visit his father, who was in the final stages of cancer. John couldn't help but tell his blind father about what he's been through recently. Touch the rotten part of the son's chest. The father could not imagine the pain his son had to endure. At this moment, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Father wanted John to eat him, so John will have time to investigate the truth of the case. Even though John was extremely miserable inside, but he still agreed with his father's decision. Before he died, he wanted to see the deep blue sky one more time. John took him to the beach. After eating his father for a while, father also transformed into an entity similar to John. Blind eyes now see the sky again. Father and son kept looking up at the sky, and started talking about old stories. When it feels like time is almost enough, the father took the gun from John, and slowly begins to end life. Even though John suffered terribly, but he still has to continue looking for his daughter. He took out his phone, carefully examined the photo Tommy took of his daughter. Next to his daughter, he discovered a familiar doll. I saw this doll at an insider's house. He immediately stood up and went to where the insider was. Sure enough, he found his daughter in a secret room. John called Simon to inform him. He thinks of a way to deal with Tommy. Without knowing anything, Tommy rushed to where the insider lived. Who would have thought that the person he met as soon as he opened the door was Simon? Tommy stepped forward to ask. John suddenly appeared behind him. Tommy will become Simon's new research subject. After sending his daughter home, John peeked through the window. He doesn't want his family to be in danger. Right at that moment, Adam appeared behind John. The police found John's father's body. Adam did not dare to believe that John had eaten his father, just when he wanted to clarify the truth. But Adam was knocked unconscious by Simon behind him. When he opened his eyes again, he was taken into the laboratory by Simon. Next to him is Tommy being detained. John took out Adam's phone. Record your confession statement, then return the phone to Adam. This criminal evidence is enough for John to go to jail. He just wanted Adam to give him a little more time. He wants to find the masked person who made him like that. John then untied Adam. Adam also realized John's reluctance. He agreed to John's conditions. After both of them left the laboratory, Simon begins experimenting on Tommy. He held out his hand, wanting Tommy to bite him, but Tommy refused to bite. Tommy thinks this is God's grace, and Simon absolutely does not deserve this power. These words made Simon extremely angry. He took out the extracted virus, intent to create a zombie. Actually, what Simon didn't know was, the zombie virus he was so diligently searching for. It's something he created himself. Just 2 months ago, a farm in the suburbs had an outbreak of bird flu. An old woman living alone discovered that his ostrich kept screaming. She knew that her ostrich was also infected, but she couldn't bear to abandon it, so she locked him in the house. Unexpectedly while feeding, she was also accidentally injured by a crazy ostrich. At first, the old woman did not consider it important, but who would have thought that the wound would begin to necrosis? The old woman realized something was wrong. She could only choke and kill the ostrich. Having just finished handling these matters, the old woman was immediately stunned by Simon and became unconscious afterwards. He wants to create art from his weird hobby. Completely unaware, he soaked the old woman in the chemical solution. At this time, the virus was in the wound on the old woman's hand. Reacted with chemical solution. Liquid containing the virus leaked from water pipes to the ground. Simon accidentally dropped a bullet. He picked it up and inserted it into the magazine. Then, this same bullet accidentally shot into John's body. This eventually led to him being infected with the zombie virus. Simon carries the virus to the home of an elderly person who lives alone. He wants to turn the elderly into new research subject. But who would have thought that just as he was about to get to work, the other person's family suddenly came to visit. He had no choice but to give up. On the other hand, Simon's wife took advantage of his presence, suddenly showed mercy and released Tommy. The results are predictable. Tommy, after so long of hunger and thirst, had a full meal right after that. After Simon returned to the lab, he found the laboratory in indescribable chaos. My wife is no longer recognizable. At this moment, Tommy suddenly appeared behind him. Tommy did not follow Simon's wishes. He didn't bite Simon. Instead, he threw away the tube containing the original virus. Into my mouth. Simon pulled out a gun and shot at Tommy. Tommy did not have a high school helmet and immediately ran away. His wife's death made Simon even more crazy. At this moment, John came to find him. He again took a virus sample from John's body. On the other hand, the informer received a call from Tommy, using his daughter's life to threaten him into bringing John to the warehouse to meet. Once known, John can just proceed with the appointment. Waited until the two of them arrived at the warehouse to find out. Daughter was turned into a zombie by Tommy. Tommy suddenly appeared and closed the iron door, but he could not be proud for long. A police delegation rushed to the spot. John soon informed Adam first. I'm sure Tommy will definitely be up to something. Tommy just ran out of the warehouse even though he was wearing a high school helmet, still being shot into baskets by the police. John brings the informant's mutated daughter to find Simon. Want to find an antidote, but when John was about to leave, the boss suddenly said to him, the bullet Simon shot at Tommy, and the initial bullet hit John, are the same type of warhead. This also says one thing. The one behind it all is Simon. Right after the boss's words ended, Simon walked out wearing a mask. Only after asking the dying Simon did he find out this virus basically has no antidote. To protect the family, John plans to stay away from them. He and Adam arrived at the seaside. John wanted Adam to end his life for him, but just as he was about to pull the trigger, a surprising thing happened again, and in the room containing the corpses on the other side, the forensic pathologist realized there was movement from the cabinet containing the body. After opening it, he discovered it. Simon really didn't die. A mutation has occurred. It turned out that he had injected the virus into his body. This is the end of the summary of 8 episodes of STYX 2024. Hello and see you again in Season 2.